Welcome to Modern Explorer. I'll be your host today, Mateo. You'll probably know me from other videos on the channel. Today we're going to go over my second encounter with the North American hominid, and quite frankly it was pretty terrifying for me. And we're doing this again in this kind of format because the original video with the other person, Tom, that was with me was kind of long and drawn out. So I'm going to try to shorten that up here and just kind of tell you from my perspective. But years ago, after my first encounter, and I realized like they existed, I was kind of in denial. I would just kind of hide from it. I would kind of try to ignore it, and I wouldn't go back to the same area at night anymore because I didn't want to run into them. But I felt if I went on the Rampart Range, which is the other side of the Ute Divide, it's called Ute Pass, that somehow I'd be okay. And since I was there with a friend, I'd be fine. So I used to go on night hikes up there all the time, and for the most part with other people. And what we would do in the middle of the night is we'd play like this game called Hunter, where we literally would run like miles and miles up in the foothills off trail at night, hunting each other or playing like long distance hide and seek tag. Yes, hide and seek tag. It's really fun. A little dangerous, but fun. But we, this was just like any other night. I got there first as usual. Tom is always late, and we met at this place called Glen Erie, and we're kind of on the border zone between these two like large properties that butt up right against the foothills, named Glen Erie and Flying W Ranch. And it's a place we had gone hundreds of times before. In fact, we had probably been doing this for the last like 6 months, every other night. And this is maybe November or so. It was cold. It was cold out. There was like little bits of snow, traces here and there, but not a lot at all. And we had just been going up there and running around and exploring. Like sometimes we'd go all night in the foothills off trail. We found a lot of like downed like bombers that had been scuttled that no one had found because the Air Force Academy nearby during World War II, they would train pilots so fast that you wouldn't get that they wouldn't get enough flying time, and they would crash back in those mountains. And so we were finding all this stuff in the middle of the night, and it was a lot of fun. We were in really good shape. Like I want to get back into that. Hopefully, I can get Tom to do the same thing. We're older now, but we're still fit. And so what we have here is, if you guys ever looked at Garden of the Gods, Garden of the Gods has these amazing formations. Basically, like it was the ground that was created by seabed flipped over on side as the Rocky Mountain intrusion pushed up. The whole front range, creating like these rock formations that are just go straight up like a wall. It looks like a wall, like a natural wall. And these go from Red Rocks Canyon all the way to Garden of the Gods, and further up into Glen Erie Glen Erie and Flying W Ranch. So you kind of have to go past this border in order to get into this area. These walls, these natural walls. And so I got there first as usual, because Tom's, historically and traditionally late to everything. Love him to death, but he is so late. So I got there first, and I decided, it's late. I know he's gonna take him forever to get here. So I went exploring around, and I found an actual a way to get over the wall. So I was free climbing. Probably not the best thing to do in the middle of the night, one of these vertical walls, but I found a way over it. And I had explored other walls during the day to find ways to get up to the top. So I get over it, and it drops me down on this trail. This on the Glen Erie side, and this trail kind of ends, and there's a memorial there for I don't know who. That's at the end of this trail, and this is kind of a distance from anywhere else, right? Like you have to go up these trails, and then it's spacious. This whole land, and then of course it butts up against 2 million acres of Pike National Forest, and I'm this I'm just there waiting. I'm texting him, just seeing where he's at, and it's probably like a good, I don't know, half hour, maybe longer. No one's there. There's no one on the premise at night. It's probably like 11:30, getting close to 12 by this time, getting close to midnight. And I feel pretty safe. We've been doing this nonstop, like for months. And we've been getting really good at this. Like we start, like every time like we have like one of these runs, we talk about afterwards the strategies and tactics that we used. And so on this particular night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to set up in a hard for me to escape place. So that's where I was. The place where I set up to basically at the end of this trail, the only real routes out were further into the forest on difficult terrain. That was going to be a real challenge for me to try to evade him and to try to hide from him, especially Tom, since he's a lot faster than me. So he can outrun me. So I have to think strategically and tactically in that moment. And so he finally gets to the area, and by the area, he's maybe like a quarter mile, maybe more, like a distance away. In fact, there's like a valley that separates us, two of these big like rock walls, and I start howling, okay? And the reason we howl in this game is because we found out right away when we first started that if we were just go hide and try to have the other one find us, it would just take forever, it would just get stagnant. So we howl, the other one has to howl back in order to have an idea where the other person is, so we can keep the game going, we can keep working out, we can keep moving. So I start the howls, I hear him howling way out in the distance, and it just keeps getting closer and closer and closer, naturally, right? Like he's on his way to hunt me down. And so he gets over to what sounds like he's like really close, So he gets to a point where like now all of a sudden his last howl sounds further away. But it doesn't really like faze me, because what I do to him and other people that we play this game is when they're really close, I'll go ooh and turn away and be quieter, so it sounds like I'm in a different spot, so that he doesn't pinpoint exactly where I'm at. And so I just assumed he was doing that. So I just decided to go full quiet now, because I'm like, oh, he must be really close, even though his last howl was a lot further than the original one. And then a little while later, I start hearing him creep up on me. I hear him walking on the ravine side, not on the trail, like on the ravine, kind of going a diagonal above me. And there's a bunch of scrub oak and trees, and it's really gravelly, like a steep slope. And so of course he's a big dude, so he's obviously trying to be quiet. He's doing a really good job, right? Like I just hear creak, 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 and I'm just like, well, he's finally here, and he's taking a position of he's finally here, and he's taking an effective position, right? Like he's taking the high ground, a good ambush point, a place where he can see me, I can't see him, and he can like jump on me easier because he's going downhill. But I'm cool with that, right? Like I expected him to do that because we've been playing this game a long time. We've adapted. We've learned like how to use strategies, and so it's just natural that that's what he's doing. Like he's trying to find me, and he's just like creeping around up there, and I hear creak, creak, and he comes all the way up above me, and he just stops right behind this tree and with a bunch of scrub oak around it, and he's maybe, I don't know, shoot, it was really close. It was like maybe 20 feet away, right? So he's there, like just behind the tree, just like chilling there. Then I'm already impatient because I just been waiting for him for so long that I finally say, after like a whole minute, a whole minute's a long time, especially in Tom time, just wait there, do nothing. So I'm like, Tom, bro, I know you're there. Come and get me. And as soon as I say this out loud, I hear his scream again, way out in the distance. And my heart just like stops. Because at this time in my life, I knew better. I knew that these hominids existed. I knew that they were real, and I knew that they inhabited this type of area. And that's the only conclusion I could draw. Because I heard it. I heard it. I thought it was Tom. Just walk right up to me. And that wasn't Tom, right? And naturally trying to feel more secure, I'm like, well, I have to be critical about this just to confirm. So I call Tom. And I have like a little like Bluetooth thing that I put in my ear, and I'm just like, Tom, where are you? You know, like, where are you at? And then he tells me, of course, he's still like a quarter mile away. Like, for some reason, he went further away instead of coming back to me, which we'll talk about in a moment. And I just tell him, Tom, please come over here as fast as you can, please. You know, and I just hang up the phone, because now I'm on alert. You know, I'm like, what do I do? That's a Sasquatch right there, and I'm in like the worst spot ever. I put myself in a really terrible position to get away, because it was supposed to be just Tom and I playing. You know, it was supposed to be a fun like a game where the only thing I had to worry about was just like falling over a rock. You know, because we run into plenty of mountain lions and bears, and like they just run away from you. This was something else. And so I started really contemplating, like, and thinking, like, well, what do I do? Like, well, what are my alternatives? Because if I go down the trail, this thing, if it wants to, can just cut me off. Like, it can just, that's where it came from, like, kind of like on the trail, and then went diagonally off it up to, like, where I'm at. So I think it saw me from the trail, and then just made that like, went that direction just for cover and concealment, so you get right on top of me. And so I'm in this really bad position, because I was like, well, if I go further into the wilderness off the trail, I'm going to go further away from Tom, and I'm going to be a lot slower, and this thing, if it wants to, it can just take me off. But if I run down the trail, it's going to easily be able to cut me off too. So I was like, what do I do? You know, and I'm terrified right now, you know, because I've already had a bad experience with a group of Sasquatch. Granted, like, retrospect, it was because of my actions, but at the time, like, I barely knew anything. I just knew, like, they were big and scary, and even though, like, I didn't get any, like, ill intent, just the thought of them was terrifying. Like, you're in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, in a forest, right? Like, in the mountains, to realize that the real monsters exist, even if they're not necessarily monsters. Like, that's the way, like, you kind of perceive them, especially when you're new to it. And so I decide, you know what, I'm just going to run down the trail towards Tom, screaming and hollering, trying to look big, because that's what you do with a mountain lion and a bear, right? And that's all, like, I really have to go off at this point, and I don't want to stay there. Like, I'm in this kill zone, and I want to get out of it as fast as I can, even though in the back of my mind, my intuition was telling me that this guy, this creature, this hominid, this being, really just wanted to come and, like, he was like playing, he was like watching us play, and he wanted to be part of it. That's my intuition. But every other piece of my body, my instinct, my mind was just like yelling at me to get out of there. You know, like, this thing can mess you up if it wants to. So I just take off running, you know, and I'm like, whoa, trying to be as big and as scary as possible. And I go all the way down this trail where it kind of turns, and then the valley goes down to this like service road, and then back up to the other side of the valley. And I see him, because you can see, like, the shadow. There's enough light where you can see that, like, people's silhouettes as they're moving around. And I see him, like, up on the other side already. Again, like, pretty far away, you know, from where it sounded like he had, because he sounded like he came really close to me. And so I do my howl, right? And I'm just like, what is he doing over there? Like, I'm panicking at this point, because I'm like, there's still, like, brush and trees, and it's still dark around me. Like, anything could creep up on me if it wanted to. And so I see him finally. He hears me, and he starts running down, like, the valley to come over to me. And then he's, like, partway down, and he just turns around and runs back up again. And I'm like, why are you running back up again, dude? I'm freaking out here. I need you. And so I had my flashlight, my headlamp, and there was no way I was going to use that because that's really all I had. I didn't have any other weapons or anything on me when this occurred. Just my headlamp, which is better than my first encounter. So I am like, I guess, kind of upgrading. I'm evolving. But I took it. I shone the light on, and like I just made sure he saw where I was, that I was on the other side. So then he finally turns around and starts coming back at me, and he finally meets me up where I'm at, and I'm still freaking out. So I tell him, I don't feel safe here. Let's run up this trail. So this trail goes all the way up to this place called the Scar, which is this huge site of like a mountain that's just been mined off for gypsum to help build the Air Force Academy, and now it's like a bighorn sheep sanctuary. So we head up there and we get to the part where the mill is, and it's this big open, like a flat spot at the beginning of the Scar, and where I can see all around. I'm like, we go to in the middle of this thing, and I'm just like looking around, like I feel like I'm back in the Marine Corps in a war zone looking for the enemy. Like that's literally like the place I went to, because it was so frightening with this encounter. And so I recount to him like what happened, and obviously he's skeptical at this point, but he has an even stranger story than I did. So I reiterate what I said, and he said, and then he initially says, well, it did sound like there was another howl that didn't sound like yours and wasn't me, and it might have been that howl that sounded closer. But then he goes on to tell me why it's taking him so long to even get to me when he finally got here. And so he goes on to say how he was coming down the first time doing those howls. He got to the other side of the valley where he met me. But then he looked back and he saw two humanoid silhouettes coming down the other side of the valley going the same route that he had just taken. And so he thought it was me, and with someone else. And it's not like I wouldn't put it past him, because we had done that before, where like I'll bring someone extra and we'll just switch the game up on him, or on each other. And so it wasn't outside the realm of possibility that I had brought someone and had not told him. And so he goes back thinking that somehow, even though it's like messing with him, like maybe there's more people here and I'm over there. And so he goes back. He runs back and goes up the other side of so he goes back the other side of the valley, and he's just up there looking for the people he just saw, or like like these figures had been running down. And so by that time, that's when I call him freaking out, being like, dude, please come over here, and I make that big run towards like where he's at, from one, like on my side of the valley. And so I get there, he hears my howl, so he starts coming back down to the valley. And then what he says is, so he's halfway down, he looks down at the very bottom in the brush, and he can see a figure creeping through the brush down there. And so he thinks, like, and this is what he's telling me, right? He thinks that that's me. Like I'm just like messing with him, and I'm just like trying to ambush him now. And so he starts running back up, thinking like maybe we flip the game around, like now I'm chasing him instead of him chasing me. And that's why I saw him running back up again, And that's I took on the flashlight, turned it on, then he saw that, and then came all the way over to me, and we ran up to the Scar. And so that's like the main gist of it. And it was scary, Like I didn't want to be there, so we decided to hike down through like the old road that used to go up there, which is more open, and it's a longer road because it winds around. But I didn't want to go back through all that brush and where we had just come from, where we had this encounter. And Tom's come more around to be more open to it. I mean, he actually got the visuals. I didn't even get these visuals. I didn't want to see it. Like I kind of formed that conclusion because that's the only thing that made sense. But he kind of like supported what I was experiencing by those visuals. And I do think so. Obviously, it was scary. And I don't think their intent was to harm us, but it was just the fact that they existed and I didn't know anything about them at that time was just completely, like, it was traumatic, honestly. And but I do really think, like I said earlier, that their intent wasn't malice or malicious in any way. I really do think that they just wanted to play. Like they were able to see what we were doing, and who knows how long they've been watching us, right? We've been doing this every other night, sometimes like a couple nights in a row in the same spot for months. And so I really do think that it's something they could associate with. Like they saw what we were doing, and they probably played games like that with like amongst each other, and they wanted to play with us. And they like had separated into groups, and they were stalking us. And this is just the moment we found them, and it makes me wonder. At first, like, it freaked me out. I was like, how many more times were they out there, nearby us, like stalking us as we played this game? Because I had pebbles thrown at me a lot of times during this, but also Tom would throw pebbles at me on occasion, especially when it was really dark and it was hard to see, to mess with me. And there were also times where I started questioning, where I was like, was that actually Tom? Because there were times like I would get pebbles thrown at me, and then a moment later, like, he'd be like kind of a distance away, like where I was like, I didn't hear him creep like through the brush. Like, I was like, man, how did I not hear him like walk that far? And so it made me start wondering what it could be. Like in Red Rock's Open Space Canyon, for example, there are Sasquatch encounters. I've interviewed several people that have had that, and that's a place where I would get pebbles thrown at me and assumed they were Tom, and many times they were Tom, but there were times like I'm not even sure about anymore. But yeah, I guess that's like the gist, and I really think they were just trying to play with us, and that was just too much for me. And I've been back there. I do less night ones, and so the video that we made, Tom and I, and the reason it's so long is because we actually went over there and to the close to the area where this happened, and talked about it. And it was kind of like me facing my fears. It was a big moment for me. I know it's maybe a bit hard to tell in the video because we go up there and build a fire and kind of get drunk, and then tell the story, and we ramble on trying to like connect like the memories together. But the reason it was like that, and I wanted to kind of share it with you guys, is because it was a big moment for me. Like, it was a moment of me finally coming back to this area where I was traumatized and like kind of facing those fears. Like, that was like a really big step in my evolution of being able to feel more comfortable at night and around these hominid species. So if you guys want to check it out, it's like, it'll definitely be linked down in the description below the video. Again, like, it's us more rambling and kind of putting it together. So I don't know how some of you will take that, but if you want the full like version and experience of me like kind of facing those fears and like talking about it and going to that spot for the first time, then that's where you'll find it. And of course, I'm gonna try to do more videos like this, more recaps, and get Glenn involved and a few other people, so we can actually talk about some of the encounters, because we miss a lot of data, like when we do like interviews, where you don't hear like what Glenn and I think about it after like we hear an interview, kind of like talk about it and set up in this format, so you guys can hear our points of view and the other people's, and see how that works, see how you guys like it, see how we like it, and go from there. I just really want to thank the members, like the few of you that they are. I'm very thankful for you guys supporting the channel, and everyone else that comes and comments, likes, and shares. Like, that really helps the channel a lot, so thank you. And the ones that are always around, I really appreciate you guys. I try to reach out, sometimes I don't, but you guys really make the channel like a community, so thank you. And if you guys have any more questions or details or anything like that, like, ask me in the comments. I'll be sure to try to get back to you. And yeah, hopefully this helped like clarify and clear up some things of my second encounter. Thanks, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with them.